Okay, so the last video is about using I to simplify solutions of quadratic equations. So when we have a quadratic equation, we often get two solutions. And you know if we're going to get two solutions by using the, I hope you said discriminant, okay? And we have to remember that the discriminant is b squared minus 4ac. So that number is going to tell you what kind of solutions you get to the quadratic equation. So let's be reminded that if this is 0, then we get one rational solution. Okay? And that means there's going to be one x-intercept if we were to graph it. We're not always going to graph things, so it looks like that. Number 2. If we have a perfect square, any perfect square, if we have a perfect square, we're going to get two rational solutions. And that means we're going to have two x-intercepts if we were to graph it. The next thing is if we have a non-square number as our discriminant. And if we have that, that means we have two irrational solutions. And last but certainly not least, oh wait, hang on. And that means we have two x-intercepts that will have to be estimated if we were to graph them. And of course, the last one is a negative number, any negative number at all. If we have a negative number, then we'll have two imaginary solutions. And what does that mean? That means there are no x-intercepts because it's imaginary. Okay? So let's go back to this one. If there's one x-intercept, that means the vertex is going to hit the x-axis. Okay? Or I could do it over here. The vertex is going to hit the x-axis. That's what that looks like, one x-intercept. A perfect square or non-square number means that the parabola is going to go through the x-axis. Can go through it anywhere in two places. You could go through it this way in two places. Okay? And then last, if it is a negative number, then it's not going to go through the x-axis at all. So it can be up here, right? It could be down here. It could be really close to the x-axis, but it doesn't cross it. So that's what it looks like graphically. So now what is this all about, this negative number? How can we use I to actually simplify it so we don't actually see the negative number inside the square root? If we were to have a quadratic equation, okay, and we have something, and I'm just going to make up some numbers. If I do the formula, let's say I have negative 2 plus or minus the square root of 2 squared minus 4 times 5 times 3 all over 2 times 3, right? Because b squared minus 4ac, oops, 2 times 5. So what if we were to have this number? What does this number actually mean? So if I do the math, agreed, if I do the math, I get 2 squared, which is 4, minus 4 times 5 times 3, and I get negative 56. So what I actually have here is negative 2 plus or minus the square root of negative 56 over 10. Now we stopped there before and we just said that this was imaginary, but this lesson is to show you how you can use I to simplify this answer. We're still going to leave the plus or minus, but we can use I to simplify the answer. So what do we know about the square root of 56? Okay, well there's a couple of things we know about it. So we're going to go over here and I'm going to talk to you about what this is. So the square root of 56, I know it says negative, but the square root of 56 I can break up into two things. I can break this up into the square root of 56 and the square root of 1. That's really obvious. I could also break this up into the square root of 4 times the square root of 14 times the square root of 1, right? Well, the cool thing about the square root of a negative number is I can break it up almost the exact same way. But I'm going to break it up this way. The square root of 56 times the square root of negative 1. And there is my I. So now I'm just going to I'm going to use this as it is a positive now. So how can I simplify the square root of 56? Well, I can do it like I did it here. I'm going to break it up into the square root of 4 times the square root of 14. So I can simplify this to 2 root 14 times I. And that's what the square root of negative 56 is. So I'm going to go back here and I'm going to bring this back into my answer. And this is how I write it. Are you ready? X equals negative 2 plus or minus 2I root 14 all over 10. Now hopefully you should be looking at this and saying, I can simplify even further because the 2, and the 10 all have a 2 in common. And you have to remember that this is multiplication. So 2I is just saying 2 times I. So I can simplify this. Hopefully you've done it already. This, and this, they all have a 2, so I can simplify that to a 1, and a 5. So my final answer is x equals negative 1 plus or minus I root 14 over 5.